If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. Benediction is a 2021 biographical romantic drama film written and directed by Terence Davies in his last ever film before his death on October 7th, 2023. It stars Jack Lowden and Peter Capaldi as the war poet Siegfried Sassoon, along with Simon Russell Beale, Jeremy Irvine, Kate Phillips, Gemma Jones and Ben Daniels. The film was released in the United Kingdom on the 20th of May 2022 by Vertigo Releasing and in the United States on the 3rd of June 2022 by Roadside Attractions. The film follows the life of Siegfried Sassoon, a British poet and decorated World War I combat veteran who was sent to a psychiatric facility for his anti-war stance. He had love affairs with several men during the 1920s, married and had a son, and later converted to Catholicism. 7 of Siegfried Sassoon's poems were narrated in the film. Concert interpretation, Died of Wounds, When I'm Among a Blaze of Lights, To My Mother, To My Brother, Attack, and Invocation. 2 of Wilfred Owen's poems were narrated in the film, Anthem for Doomed Youth and Disabled. Sassoon quotes from Oscar Wilde's famous Love That Dare Not Speak Its Name. The film features Robbie Ross, Wilde's friend and the man who kept his works in print. The film starts with a concert featuring The Rite of Spring by Igor Stravinsky, considered one of the breakthrough moments in modernism. Sassoon was a poet who retrospectively became known as a modernist poet. Ivor Novello, played by Jeremy Irvine, is shown singing his comedy song And Her Mother Came Too. In the film Gosford Park, directed by Robert Altman, Jeremy Norton, playing Novello, sings the exact same song. In one scene, Sassoon is discussing his homosexuality with Dr. Rivers, who states that he too has the same emotions and feelings. There is no evidence that Dr. Rivers was gay, though he was close to Sassoon and Wilfred Owen. This is likely a fantasy of the director. Just a little bit about the real Siegfried Sassoon. Siegfried Lorraine Sassoon, CBE, was born on the 8th of September 1886 and died on the 1st of September 1967. He was an English war poet, writer and soldier. Decorated for bravery on the Western Front, he became one of the leading poets of the First World War. His poetry described the horrors of trenches and satirized the patriotic pretensions of those who, in Sassoon's view, were responsible for the jingoism-fueled war. Sassoon became a vocal point for dissent within the armed forces when he made a lone protest against the continuation of the war with his Soldier's Declaration poem of July 1917, which resulted in him being sent to the Craig Lockhart War Hospital in Scotland. During this period he met and formed a friendship with another poet, Wilfred Owen, who was greatly influenced by him. Sassoon later won acclaim for his prose work, notably his 3-volume fictionalized autobiography collectively known as the Shurston Trilogy. As mentioned, while Craig Lockhart, he met Wilfred Owen. Owen would be killed on the 4th of November 1918 at the age of just 25, 1 week before the end of World War I. Numerous surviving documents demonstrate clearly the depth of Owen's love and admiration for him. Writing years after Owen died, Sassoon said, "W.'s death was an unhealed wound, the ache of it being with me ever since. I wanted him back, not his poems." Despite sentiments expressed in numerous letters between Sassoon and Owen, there is no evidence to support a physical relationship between the two of them. As Sassoon matured, his succession of love affairs with men included William Park Gabriel Atkin, the landscape architectural and figure painter, draftsman and illustrator, Ivor Novello, actor, Glenn Byam Shaw, also an actor and Novello's former lover, Prince Philip of Hesse, a German aristocrat, Beverly Nichols, a writer, and Stephen Tennant, an aristocrat as well. Of those, Tennant made a permanent impression. Introduced at Sitwell's in 1927, Sassoon and Stephen Tennant fell passionately in love, beginning a relationship which lasted nearly 6 years. Tennant, however, had recurrent tuberculosis, which put a strain on their relationship, and it had started to show in the early 1930s. In May 1933, Tennant, then receiving treatment in a sanatorium in Kent, abruptly broke off the relationship, informing Sassoon via letter written by his physician that he never wanted to see him again. Sassoon was devastated. When he met his future wife, Hester Gaiety, a few months later, he was still reeling from the breakup with Tennant. Sensing a sympathetic nature, Sassoon confided in Hester about their relationship and at her suggestion wrote Tennant a letter to put the past to rest. While he and Tennant exchanged letters, telephone calls and infrequent visits in the years to come, they never resumed their previous relationship. Instead, in December of 1933, he would marry Hester Gaiety, who was 20 years his junior. The marriage led to the birth of a child, Siegfried's son, George Sassoon, who was born in 1936. In the response to the film's portrayal of Sassoon's conversion to Catholicism, the poet's niece, Sister Jessica Gaiety, who attributes her own conversion to Sassoon's influence, repudiated the filmmakers by revealing that he had been both at peace and joyful in his later years, stating, "The redemption which he sought in many different ways and which he longed for was found in the last decade of his life when he came home to Christ in the Catholic Church. He was transformed. I can witness to this, so I need to speak out. Now I found this to be a beautifully touching, remarkable piece of filmmaking that you can see the late director Terence Davies really put his heart and soul into making. It doesn't always make for a very easy watch, but nonetheless it's extremely profound, engaging and just absolutely fascinating throughout. The film uncovers the nuanced and fascinating life of Siegfried Sassoon, the World War I poet, who led a very complicated existence. The film now delves into his life, from being a conscientious objector to World War I and writing some beautiful poetry works, to his many love affairs with some very famed men of the time. It's a fascinating insight not only into the period, but also being homosexual within a time frame that people really didn't accept it. Yet there was conflict between the old and the new, and accepting the way that art was evolving and bringing on the change of modernism. Jack Lowden turns out an spellbinding performance here as Siegfried Sassoon, and he carries the film on his back with a superb, magnificent, layered performance. Peter Capaldi does his best in the older version as well, but he doesn't really get much of a chance to sink his teeth into the role, and he comes across just jaded and regretful. I particularly loved here Jeremy Irvine's performance of Ivor Novello. He has some of the best, most sarcastic and cutting lines within the whole movie. Also, it's a superb performance here from Callum Lynch as Stephen Tennant. The script is absolutely wondrous, with some fantastic biting dialogue and wonderful use of vocabulary, as Terence Davies shows his love affair with the English language, and the back and forths between the main characters is just wonderful to sit back and just let unfold before your eyes and ears. The film is also beautifully shot, and I found it to be quite moving as it plays off the frustrations and the real trepidations of the time, and how these men not only had to fight on a broad-scale conflict, but had to compete with the conflict within themselves as well. It's a beautifully touching piece of filmmaking, which is made all the more poignant by it being Terence Davies' final piece of work. With its phenomenal acting, fascinating story, beautifully written script, this film provides you with an insight into a very complex, yet intrinsically fascinating man. Benediction gets a 9 out of 10.